When she accompanied her husband to Washington in 1889 as First Lady, she took Putski along to conduct classes in the White House that included the wives and daughters of President Harrison's cabinet. And I'm sure that when the First Lady said, "You will come to a China painting class in my rooms," none of the wives turned her down. Oh, Mrs. Harrison was a founder of the DAR, and this painting was done for them by Daniel Huntington. But what I wanted to show you was a vase by Paul Putski, which is on the left, and a plaque painted by Mrs. Harrison, which is on the right, in 1891, shortly before she died. She died of tuberculosis while her husband was still president. But what I want you to notice here is how closely the student's work follows the technique of the teacher. The Putski vase, which is now in the Dallas Museum of Art, was painted about the same time as Mrs. Harrison's plaque. In addition, a number of courses were taught during the summer months in resort areas or outside major cities, so that participants could renew both their physical and aesthetic health. Robineau's Four Winds Summer School in Syracuse, where Catherine Cherry taught China painting and general design courses, is well known. And that's a picture in the lower left of the Four Winds students and faculty from 1913.
So is that an acrylic pot they're using as a model?
This other one, the one up above, is Arthur Wesley Dow's wife teaching basket making in Ipswich at their summer school in Ipswich, Massachusetts. They both taught. Mr. and Mrs. Dow taught in that school, and she taught basket making and weaving and a certain amount of pottery making. And yes, they had Indian, Native American arts there that they were copying. There were also classes taught by Mrs. L. Vance Phillips at her School of Ceramic Art at Chautauqua, New York during the 1890s. And classes taught in the early years of this century by New York China painter Marshall Fry at his summer home in Southampton. They were very popular. And Alfred, New York had a summer school of ceramic art, which also attracted a number of participants, not the least of which was Adelaide Robineau in about 1903, I think. Like Arthur Wesley Dow's classes in design at Ipswich, Massachusetts, where his wife taught as well, and also his classes at the Pratt Institute for Art in New York, these schools and workshops were largely attended by women who went on to become teachers of arts and crafts in their own right, working independently or in private and public schools, teaching fine and industrial arts courses to several generations of school children. And this is what I'm trying to get at about the ideas of mothers. It's the mothers who are teaching, who are carrying out these schools and sending more women, young women, off into other schools who are teaching children. The nature of China painting as a cottage art industry gives it a close bond with the emphasis of the arts and crafts movement on objects that involve the maker personally, in this case, a decorator. The style associated with most late 19th century hand-painted china, however, is not identified today with the arts and crafts movement. Instead of the flat, conventionalized ornament that characterizes the arts and crafts style, China painting frequently exhibits an illusionistic naturalism. Two circumstances in particular exercise strong control over the style of China painting in this period. First, the models were the ceramics that women knew best, contemporary tableware and decorative art china. In the 1870s and 1880s, this meant that women would want to copy Worcester and Minton table and decorative wares, Austrian plaques, and French Limoges china. In addition, the standard mode of instruction described by Miss Perry ensured a monotony of style. Writing in 1916, Minneapolis china painter Henrietta Barclay Paste discusses the issue of style transmission in her manual Design and the Decoration of Porcelain. And this is another Austrian artist, Franz Bischoff, who worked the Detroit area, and they had many china painting classes there. Today, the professional china painters, there are two organizations, the World Organization of China Painters and the Professional Porcelain Artists Association, still revere Aulich and Bishop as the fathers of china painting in the United States. So I thought I should show a few of those, even though they're not bins, obviously. And this now is Henrietta Barclay Paste speaking, writing. The introduction of our craft to this country was premature. There had been no preparation. We knew little or nothing of design, the foundation of all crafts, so it grew to be a fad depending for its inspiration on the factories of the old world, copying the styles of these and striving to overcome technical difficulties. Consequently, when in response to a demand for technical instruction, representatives of some of these factories, of which flower painting was the chief characteristic, came to this country, and in this case she's talking about people like Bischoff and Aulich, we followed blindly and nearly lost our way in the labyrinth of beautiful flowers that were made to bloom on the surface of white china. So we copied, and our pupils in turn copied us, and we became degenerate copyists of copies. Then to paint a rose or a bunch of grapes so naturally could be picked was our highest ambition. While many china painters have continued to prefer this style because of its close association with illusionistic watercolor and canvas painting, there were others who were able to break away from the naturalism that defined the art of china painting in the late 19th century. Using historic ornament as a source of inspiration, some women learned to abstract the essential elements of flowers into repeatable patterns rather than to recreate flowers on china. Design books such as Owen Jones' Grammar of Ornament, first published in London in 1856, offered innumerable examples of how ancient craftsmen in Europe and Asia used conventionalized ornament derived from nature. So I just picked up a Haris carpet off the internet to try and show how it relates, in a way, to the painting by Elizabeth Mason on this toast cup. It's pretty large, I think about 10 inches in height. And what the rug artist was doing, and in a traditional way, and what Elizabeth Mason was doing in a new way of thinking for china painters, was to make what appears to be abstract design is really abstracted from natural flowers and other forms from nature, I should say. Elizabeth Mason's toast cup was decorated in 1899 and shown at the Paris Exposition of 1900. And it's a very good example of how historic ornament could be adapted by an American china painter. The next step was to apply the lessons of conventionalization learned from the past in order to create modern ornament. And for that we look at Christopher Dresser's plate 98 from Owen Jones' Grammar of Ornament. Owen Jones collected all of these and created the plates, but a few of them were done by Christopher Dresser, and one, I think, of the most important is this plate 98 that shows how you take a flower and flatten it out and make it into find its ornamental form. And next to that is a cup and saucer by Catherine Cherry, where she's done just that.